What's going on, guys? Welcome to Peak Human Performance. Today our coaches are going to be going through a light workshop with the one and only Dr. Richard Ulm from CCRC. We're going to be covering the kettlebell swing. Why don't you tell them a little bit about what we did today?
Yeah, so a lot of them, they already knew the swing really, really well, and so we went and just kind of tweaked it a little bit and went through a whole bunch of drills to learn how to apply a proper brace to it and have a lot of peel back exercises so that if an athlete is having a little bit of a technical issue, they can quickly sort of transition while on the floor to get them to have a much, much better technique.
Awesome. So hopefully you guys enjoy what you're getting ready to watch, and just know that this is the type of work that we do behind the scenes to make sure that your experience is top notch. Looking forward to catching you guys on the floor. Thanks for checking us out.
Okay, so we'll just start right off with how do you brace for a swing, which is the same as bracing for deadlifting, a hinge, a squat, whatever, and that's about pressurizing your belly. So we can do, if we think about just the mechanics of it really quickly, you have the diaphragm on the top, the pelvic floor on the bottom, and then the abdominal wall wraps around. I consider those the primary muscles of stabilization, and in a proper scenario, you're maximally leveraging those structures to control the ribs, spine, and pelvis, and you're trying to use the accessory muscles of stabilization, hip flexors, back muscles, pecs, whatever, hamstrings, as little as possible. So it's not a matter of like creating a ton of tension everywhere. It's no, be able to stabilize the ribs, pelvis, and spine with the primary muscles of stabilization and try to use, in my case, the spinal extensors as little as possible. If you can do that, the spine and the body will just function better. So what you can do, if you sit back like this, now that brings your pelvis into a neutral position relative to your rib cage. And it's very easy to feel in this position. If you have your hands on your side now, you literally, if you cinch your fingers together and you want to be able to push your belly out so that your fingertips and your thumbs all move away from the center. So if you're just here like this, you're just going to push out. No breathing yet. You should feel not only the belly going forward, but almost more importantly, you need it going backwards. And that's where people, they can't do it. Right. Yep. Or another one everybody can do, if you sit back like this, so bring your knees apart. This is kind of child's pose-ish. And sit back with your hands, again, your forehead on your thumbs. And now in this position, your lower belly should be pushing against your groins. That's just going to give you tactile input. Now, don't try to tense your abs at all. Just push your belly out against your groins. And you should feel the expansion against the groins and most importantly, backwards, right? So go ahead and push out. So you want to get more back this way. Sorry. So push out here. Yeah, there you go. Push out down here. More. Feel that back here. Yes. Good. Push out down here, and you want to feel it back there. Good. Push out. Yes, and you can feel that more here. You can either, with the whole group, you could start with a half kneeling one, or if they're like, I can't feel it, or let's say they're able to pressurize under their belly, but they can't push backwards, okay? When I have the bell coming between my legs and I'm here, I need neutral spine pressure backwards. What's happening there is the diaphragm is creating, it's literally taking the abdominal contents and it's physically pushing it against the spine. It is no different than me reaching my hand in and pushing on the spine from the front. It's that powerful. And if you're pushing forward and you're not getting it going backwards, you're not benefiting from the pressure, okay? So if they can't feel the pressure pushing backwards, they need the child's pose one, so they're like, oh, that's what it feels like, tactile input, or you're standing there, or you can have them foam roll their back to just sort of wake up that area, and then they can push backwards. Because if they can do it when the bell's coming through here, like when I'm getting set up, I'm breathing in and I want to feel this so that when I swing back and I start to actually go into the swing, I have good pressure back here.
So real quick, one thing that I think is important when we're talking about how we're actually applying this to clients is think about that hierarchy. Will be your soft tissue first, right? Then you're gonna go into your activation, and then you're gonna go from your activation into whatever comes next. So like making sure that you're working both antagonist and protagonist. So for example, if you know that that person, erectors or their QL are not firing, have them roll it first, then second have them go into the breathing exercise. Then from that third, then we would go into however you're going to dynamically warm that up on the floor. Does that make sense? So, and the counter to that too is to make sure that their glutes are firing so that they're not by default just over-activating their lumbar, erectors or anything else, and now you're exacerbating the problem.
You can also work backwards. So if someone's in there and they're doing something, even in the middle of it, you might be, hey, go back and just hit the foam roller a little bit and then come back in here. So what he's saying, that hierarchy where you would start and get them, in the middle of the workout, you could have them step backwards in between sets and go, hey, just do this thing over here or feel this pressurization exercise and then come back in and do your deadlifts.
Yeah, which is no different than bringing the foam roller over to the trap bar, over to the bar. In between sets, when they stand up, it's like, hey, real quick, jump down on the floor, do this, this, and this, flip over, take a couple of breaths as part of your recovery, then come back to the bar.
Or the kneeling one, or the child's pose one. Think of it as like post-activation potentiation, either that has to do with muscle fibers. Think of it as patterns. So you could use that, hey, we're gonna use this pattern to train that, and then when you go under the barbell or the swings, try to feel that in your lift. Yeah. So then you can go into what we're already doing. You go into like a half kneeling position here if you want. I don't often do this, but you can do the same position from here. So we need to be able to pressurize. Oh, we're done at 2, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You need to be able to pressurize and into the thumbs. It gets harder as you stand up. Then the last one, you can come all the way up here. Once you do the half kneeling, you can do both sides if you want. Now you're here. Sometimes their hip flexors are too tight. When they stand up, it pulls their pelvis forward, so then it's even harder to breathe into here. So you might have them kind of do a little bit of a squat so they have a little more freedom there. Teach them to pressurize like that. That's the very basic progression. All that we're doing here is creating the sensation of an outward pushing force in your belly. If you have that, the diaphragm is involved. If the diaphragm is involved, you have pressure. And pressure is the most important force for stabilizing your spine. My setup for, if you're gonna teach this, and this is not the setup for the swing, would be him lining it up so the base of his big toes is right in line with the bell. Actually, so we'll do this. So line up so that you're literally standing with the base of your big toe on this line. Now, for me, and you can have your, how wide they are is just completely up to the athlete. I'd turn your feet out just a smidge. So now in this position, if he drops down to grab the bell, because his butt's going backwards, we've got it set up to where he's going to be balanced. His full foot loading should be the result of where his center of mass is, not his activity. Now that doesn't mean you don't want inactive feet, but a lot of people, they try to make it active. No, you should naturally be loaded right over the foot. So from here, the first drill that I would do after doing what we just did is they'll take a heavy bell. You technically could use a rack. They're bent over, but now we have to teach him, one, how to find a neutral position in like a hang clean position. You guys probably know this better than anybody. It's not that easy. And people are terribly unaware of their pelvis. Yeah, terribly unaware. So if he grabs that bell, you're gonna support on the bell. I can now literally stand here and see, you don't have to be that picky, but I wanna make sure that he's able to push your back just this way a little bit, tilt backwards. Yep, just a little bit, right there, good. So most people are gonna bias towards too far forward. So now, I've got him neutral. He's supporting on the bell. I don't think he is, but lean on the bell. Yeah, there you go. So now once they're here, I wanna have the spine mostly neutral. I tend to think that everyone is biased towards extension, and I think if you tell them, oh, I wanna see extension there, they're gonna turn their back on too much. We don't want them rounded, although you watch any world-class powerlifter, their back's rounded. So, but I still would not wanna teach that. So you're here, we've got his full foot loaded, we're not gonna bother with. He's supporting on the bell here, and all we did was say, can you find neutral? So go ahead and just keep your feet there, but stand up. The first one is like, can they achieve neutral? Can they find it? Do they have any clue what their pelvis is doing? Then, once we put them down in that same position, you're supporting on the bell. We're gonna workshop this in a second because this is very useful as a peel back for if a kid's not bracing correctly or they don't know how to brace. This is what I would do for the swing or the deadlift. We get them into a neutral position, and now without tilting their pelvis backwards, this is the hard part. If we're here like this and you say, okay, push into my hands here, what do? They do that. Nobody wants to load the spine in flexion. So I usually have my hands here and then I might slide my hand in here, pressurize this way, good. And I want to feel the expansion here, I want to feel it here, and I don't want him to lose neutral. Okay, good, let it go. And then just stand up. So you're teaching them what neutral is first, then you're making sure that they can pressurize properly, which is going to be anterior, inferior, if you want to be still, like your lower abdominal wall, and into your back. You want expansion in all directions without losing neutral, okay? Then once they learn that, now we have to apply force. And the three events that I think of in terms of a deadlift are pressurize, initiate, execute, or lift off, if you want to call it. So if he's going to brace, that's pressurize. And then initiate means he's applying force into the ground. And then lift off is, of course, when the bell comes off the ground. Well, depending on how heavy the weight, there's a decent amount of force from when you initiate to when you actually overcome gravity. If that bell weighed 500 pounds, there's a shitload of force that he has to apply into the ground. What we want with this drill, because I'm going to have him do an isometric deadlift, so he's not lifting it up. Like you don't need a 203, but we have a 203 in our office that we use all the time to train that. And what I want to feel is as he applies more force into the ground, I want to feel more pressure. So the pressure should be proportionate to the task. So this is an 80, so you would have to tell him, don't pick it up, but I want you to feel yourself apply force into the ground. So go ahead. Yeah, there you go. So we found neutral, well, good. Pressurize, and now initiate, push into the ground like you're trying to lift it. Good, let it go. So you can, stay down there, bro. So pressurize again, more back here, yes. And now push into the ground, push, 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 more. You see how you're losing this? Good, let it go. So don't round, without the bell, stand up. You'll see this all the time, 1 second. You'll pressurize, and the moment they apply force into the ground, the pressure goes away and their back turns on. You want them to, as the force increases, so does the pressure. The next drill is you're gonna have a 2-second lag between initiation and liftoff, so they can feel the increase in the pressure as they pick the bell up off the ground. So you're going to pressurize, initiate, 1001, 1002, and then go ahead and stand up. And you want to feel the pressure increase as you apply more force into the ground. Set it back down. So just relax, that's it. So we'll have everyone do this, but that drill, those 4 drills are a series of exercises that you can either use to teach them how to pressurize correctly. And by the way, by pressurization, I mean brace. Yeah. Brace is a non-specific cue to consciously stabilize. So if you say brace, you know, there's 10 of us in here, we might have 10 different strategies. We want to make sure that when we're coaching, when we say brace, every athlete knows what we mean. Yeah, you actually see how your back flattens too? That's actually really good. So we'll go ahead and pressurize and you can feel that. And for you, I would guess your right hip is tighter than your left?
Yeah.
Isn't that cool? Yeah. So you don't stabilize as well on the right.
Right.
And then that means that all of the secondary accessory muscles of stabilization have to work harder, which means you always have that right hip is tighter.
Inhale.
All right, and then switch, of course. If you didn't switch.
So it's breathing under that tension the whole time, right? Yeah, and this is what we're teaching when we're laying on your back and you're in that dead bug position.
Okay.
Yep. And then exhale. You exhale fast. Inhale. And exhale eccentrically. And control. Better. And then expand back here more. Go. Better. I'm not doing anything yet. And release. Did you feel yourself like drop in quick on the exhale?
On the first one?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's because I'm used to like.
Yeah.
When I go to stabilize, it's that. Yeah, because my back's all fucked up, and if I don't do it right.
It looks like you're tucking when you're doing it.
So think about it. The pressure, not intentionally, great question. She goes, it looks like you're tucking. I don't want to be in an anterior pelvic tilt. I want to be neutral. So if I pressurize, two things happen. One, the pressure pushes backwards against my spine, straightening it. And two, in order to create more pressure, I need more obliques. And what do? They tilt your pelvis backwards.
Yeah.
But if you,
Now feel me.
yeah.
Yeah, I want you to feel me.
Should go ahead and pressure it. Sorry. Push. You're doing it right. Should go. Push, push, push. Good. But see, so your right hip is tighter than your left,
Yeah,
correct?
of course, yeah.
So push, push, push. So you're expanding well here, but just hold your breath and push against my thumbs. Yeah. So see how that one's harder?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that side has to work harder. So that hip flexor's tighter, that hamstring's tighter. You probably don't turn as well to that side, and it's because the accessory muscles of stabilization are more active on that side and they block function there.
For someone who is very limited in that expansion of the back, is that where, again, that like child's pose drill that you talked about?
Start
really,
there,
that'd be
foam
a good-
rolling there, child's pose, yep.
And then, okay. And then
So-
kind of moving progression through that.
That's what I was saying about following the hierarchy.
Yes.
Would be the soft tissue first, then follow into
that,
activation.
and
With your
then-
breathing would be your activation with the tactile
The thing you have to be
cueing.
careful with is if you overemphasize the posterior expansion, they will round their back over too much. So if they're pain-free, you're just, think of it like this. You're trying to get them to have really good bracing technique when they leave. So if they come to peak in 3 months or 6 months, they should have a really good brace. It's no different than if I walk into the gym, like Mike Boyle says, your athletes are a representative of how you coach. So if someone's been here for 2 years and their squat form looks like crap, then you guys aren't teaching it well. Think of the brace as the same way. You don't have to get them to a perfect brace the first day. It doesn't actually matter. You want to just, every time that they come in your warm-ups, in your cues, you're teaching it, you've got drills here and there, and over time they get exposed to it, and in 3 months, 6 months later, they've got a dialed-in brace. It's fine. I mean, I am hyper-specific, and I address this on 90% of my patients, and sometimes it takes lots of time for them to get it down. It matters to me because they're in pain, and how they're stabilizing is contributing to that. For you guys, if somebody comes in and they can't expand into their back, that does not mean, oop, nope, you can't do any swings today. No, they're fine. Just keep working on it, and then they'll just keep getting a little bit better every time they come in the door.
Say too, I know we had talked about this previously, but think about like what you're using every single time in class as your warm-up. And like you'll see me start with somebody and it's like always I'm thinking of that McGill Big 3 and breathing as the first stage. So like get them down into the floor, get them breathing, build them back up, and then what of those three, if not all three, do I need to insert? So it's really gonna come back down to like the formula you're using for the programming.
So if he comes down here and see how his back's tilted over, what can cause this?
Tension in the psoas, tension in the hip flexors, lack
We'll
of the
just broadly
glutes.
say
yeah.
tight hips.
Tight hips.
Or unawareness of the pelvis. Let's say it's tight hips. And if they have tight hips and they lack the hip flexion to achieve neutral, what do?
Stretch it out, roll it,
You
stretch
could do
it.
that. You could do that in here real quick. Elevate the bell. Okay, so if someone's gonna walk in and get into this position and you're gonna be like, God, I can't get him neutral. Well, it's because they don't have the hip flexion. So you take one of those right there, you slide it over, and you put that there, and you elevate it, and then boom, they can find it. Because all you have to do is show them neutral. So that's just making you peel back and think out loud. So find neutral first. Now, same person, get them into neutral, and then you're gonna have them pressurize, and you do not want them to lose neutral. Now, what you'll notice for a lot of them is when they pressurize, their pelvis will tilt backwards. You don't want that. In that case, have them emphasize breathing their lower abdominal wall against their thighs. That will reduce how much they're rounding their back over.
Back here. Good. And then exhale. That was good. Inhale. So you've got to work on this even expansion. Yeah.
What's happening now? It's like sometimes
You're segmenting. You're like breathing here, then you're pushing here, and you're not getting into the back.
Okay.
So think of it like everything is expanding all at once.
Use the bigger that I can get my back.
I think the biggest thing is like keep this from here all the way around to here, tight,
Okay.
and use this tension to push the air into your back.
Okay.
You guys are now going to do the pressurize and initiate, but there's no liftoff, right? And what do we want to feel when they do that?
Expansion and elevation.
Yep. So as they apply more force into the ground, you should feel greater expansion and more tension in the abs. What will happen a lot of times is they'll pressurize, and as they push into the ground, that will reduce or shut off altogether. And in the absence of intra-abdominal pressure, your body will crank your back on. Yep.
For the common language in terms of vernacular, what I would use, but what I think most of us use is the concept of taking the slack out of it, right? It's like gripping, taking that breath in, pressurizing, taking the slack out of it so that that lift off, you're already under tension, is a smooth lift off because everything is already on.
So I would actually say that to kind of tie those two concepts together, let's do this drill, but you want to get to the point, like a really good deadlift, they start to pull the bar, they push the tension out to where 1 more Newton of force, that bar is going to come off the ground, and then they go. Like in Olympic weightlifting, I used to do the same thing. I would be here, and I would push into tension, and then I would go. So do that with this bell, pressurize and initiate until you get up to where like you feel like the bell is almost going to come off the ground. Hold there for a second and then stop. Okay? So hold on, stay here. Everybody come here real quick because everyone will see this. So, no, he's doing the better of the two alternatives. So she had him pressurized great. Now try to mess it up. And then go ahead. See how he went into extension. So he literally pressurized, and then he went into that, what I call an extension compression stabilizing strategy, which is essentially the posterior chain overpowers the posture. That happens all the time. So the powerlifters that come into my office are Olympic weightlifters. They're the ones that they get a pinch in their back when they're stabilizing. It's their own muscles putting them out of position. So go ahead, back down. So for him, I would try to get him to sort of pressurize back here more, pressurize here, and now go ahead and push into the ground. And see how he's not doing it, so let it go.
Yeah, I saw that back expansion.
So it's a little bit weird to think about, but it's the pressure in the belly that resists the spinal extensors. It's not the abs. The abs have to go through the ribs and the pelvis before they can move anything in the lumbar spine. It's horribly disadvantageous. So you have the spinal extensors create extension, intra-abdominal pressure pushes the spine backwards. So it doesn't really create flexion, but it sure as hell resists extension. So it's intra-abdominal pressure balanced with the spinal extensors that controls the spine and the sagittal plane. So with that, I said push backwards, increasing the force going this way so that when his spinal extensors turn on, they're met with resistance and it's held in neutral. We're working with an athlete and she's like, I can't feel expansion. Okay? What are our options?
Go back to the foam roll.
Go back to, well, the foam roll, just so you know, is to wake up, it's to increase proprioception in that area so that you can breathe in it. But you could go back to, right, 3-month position, triple flexion, whatever you guys call it. You go back to the child's pose thing for even a second. So like, all right, come on over here, get into child's pose. Literally on the floor, you could do this. Sit back here. Okay, I want you to push this way. Push out, more. You feel that right there? Cool, let it go. Go and do it again. Push out, more, back here. Come on, you got this. Push. Good, let it go, stand back up. That's it. Now go ahead and you do it. So back there, try to reproduce what I just showed you with her. Can you feel it now?
Yeah.
Great. So that's it. Now, it's like you're literally,
Say something that I know we've worked on is a progression in that breathing exercise to be able to maintain that spinal position as you're elevating yourself up. So when you're down on all fours and you're breathing, then it's bringing yourself up and then removing one hand and breathing, going to no hands and holding that position on your knees and breathing, so that you're just getting better and better at being able to support it as you're working yourself up to that full standing position.
yeah. Good lady. Go ahead, push. Yep, good. And you're great. So you're a little more flexed here, which for you is fine.
Yeah, because
If you, yep, and I'm the same way. So my tolerance, or what I think people should be, I actually think a little bit of flexion is okay. I don't ever say that in seminars. I always say neutral, but for me, if you watch me, I'm like this.
Yeah, we've talked about it before. 'Cause
Yep.
now I can recruit my glutes and hamstrings.
Yep, so you're here and you've got good expansion back there, and then go ahead and, yeah, easy. And you're maintaining it as you come off the ground.
Higher, 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 there, ready? That's,
Okay.
you fill it up and then you squeeze against it. Now sit down. And as that knee opens up and you're activating through your feet, you're here.
Lots of nice bells.
Breathe. Now don't tuck, just breathe. There.
Are you guys able to keep the
Exhale.
pressure as you're lifting up? Okay,
Inhale.
that's that drill. We could spend all
You
day.
feel how you go into like
We're
slight
gonna go
flexion
grab
there?
the bell.
Brace
they
and then go.
Normally, would do
There.
a two-handed swing with. We're gonna grab the bell, and I want you also to
So like
grab
even
a
when I watch you
2.5
go
pound
up,
plate.
you have slight like flexion to your left.
Oh yeah.
So like over activation on the left side, just a little bit
can feel
down through
that,
here.
actually,
Yeah.
For me, when I set it up, you want to have the feet about shoulder width apart. I don't really care if you want it more narrow or slightly more wide, but there's going to be an equilateral triangle between your feet and the bell, right? The common mistake that people make, and this is more in CrossFit where you might be like running up and doing something, is they'll run up and grab the bell like this, okay? You know, a swing is a vertical movement with an oscillating bell. It's not an arc. Like when I'm doing a swing, I'm thinking straight up, straight up, straight up. There's nothing in me that's bending forward and coming back. I'm driving straight into the ground. If you don't have the bell set right, you're like having to work 10 times harder than you want. So we need a little bit of a pendulum motion in the beginning to get the bell going. Okay, so it's the initial setup is going to be equilateral triangle. Now, I'm not a big fan of over gripping, as she will contest. They have you death gripping the bell and trying to bend the bell like this. To me, you want to grip it as much as necessary, but as little as possible. I want good movement, like easy flow in your movement. I don't want to have excessive tension. Now, you don't want to have not enough to maintain the positioning, but I'm not going to grab this and like death grip it like they teach. You're going to grab the bell on either side like this, and when you sit back to where your knees are right above your shoelaces or your midfoot, the bell should now be in line with your arms. Because what I'm going to do is we're going to kind of hike it back here in a second. So everybody go ahead, grab the bell, and when you tilt it back, you should naturally be on a whole full foot load, right? And the bell and your arms should be in line with each other. Very cool. Leave the bell there and stand up without moving your feet. You're going to take this. This is a fantastic drill to teach kids how to swing right. So if you're like this, you're going to have not only an equilateral triangle in the front, but your target is going to be an equilateral triangle in the back. One of the common mistakes that people make is they do an early hip hinge, or they hinge in the movement, they don't actually leg drive, okay? The target is going to allow you to do this, and it's the easiest way to get an athlete to get that pop and float that we're looking for without giving them 45 different drills. The first one, because most people know that you don't want to squat too much in a swing, that we don't want this, right? You don't want to be here and you're doing this, right? You want to be sort of hinging, okay? But we want to make sure that you're not just hinging out of the hole, you're driving out of the hole. The target will help with that. So I'll do 3 hinges, 3 leg drives, and just watch the crispness of the movement and how you're going to get a pop and float with the drive, and you don't with the swing. And I'm not going to try to make it look really bad. If I'm here and I'm just swinging, I'm swinging out of the hole as opposed to this. So it's snap, float, pop, float. If you're doing it really well, you're straight up in the air before the bell's at your belly button. If you're hinging, you're not straight until the bell's almost right here, okay? So that's one common mistake that you'll see. I'll cover the other ones in a second. For this one, to walk through this, you want to teach them to get their butt and the bell to go towards the target at the bottom. So if you guys kind of watch me, the drill would be, it's just like sort of a hike and park. Hike, park, this is the hardest one. But every swing, as the bell's coming down, the bell and my butt go back to the target, and then I can drive out of that position. So it's bell and the butt back to the target, drive. Okay, it looks like this. Right? And the target gets you to load the gun so that you can fire the gun. Okay? So the first drill we're going to do is the hardest one to feel. You're just going to hike it, and you want to literally let the bell and your butt go towards the target. It's just this. So there's an arc. So everybody do like 3 or 4 reps. You want to hike it, and you want to sit with your butt, not your shoulders, back towards the target. Pretty good. Yes, so here, if this is the ground, this is like a swing. People think it's an arc. Here's the path of the bell. What it actually does is the bell will, so there's an arc. So everybody do like 3 or 4 reps. You want to hike it, and you want to sit with your butt, not your shoulders, back towards the target. Pretty good.
I think what's interesting about that pendulum is that it's not a lift and swing, it's a lift and a pop. There's like a little bounce in it, is the way he's describing it. Correct, so it's not necessarily a pendulum.
Yes, so here, if this is the ground, this is like a swing. People think it's an arc. Here's the path of the bell. What it actually does is the bell will come down here, and then you squat and it shoots back this way. So it looks more like a swoosh from the side than an arc. If it's a full arc, they're hinging the whole time. But as the bell comes through here, and now I squat down, it's more of a straight line as you drop into the bottom.
And just for what we were just talking about, Rob?
So if we're doing this, most of you are doing it pretty well, but a lot of you are doing this. It's the bell and your shoulders are going back. That's not right. Watch. It's not this. Look at my butt. I just said, look at my butt. I can't believe I said that. Right? It's this. It's sit. And the bell and the butt go back towards the target. Now, as I said before, this is the hardest to feel. Once you start doing a swing, it's way easier.
More, yeah, more in your hips. Sarah, more in your hips. I think that's probably the missing link in getting the kids, because if you think about that as like a counter movement with the jump, it's that load up before you explode. That's literally all you're doing is the pull here, sit back before you go again.
You're loading the legs, that's it.
It's all it is. And you're holding your trunk, and you're letting your hips absorb that little bounce each time you're getting the swing to come through. And if they can master that part, that changes everything.
What I say the swing is, it's a vertical movement. So when you're teaching the swing, this is the first drill that came into my head when you said, I want to know what they can peel back to if they're having trouble. It's this one. Everybody go back up to the bell again, line up for it. So I usually will teach that pendulum move, and then I'm going to teach just a kettlebell deadlift. You can go slow if you want and build up into progressive or faster, but you're going to line it up, you're going to brace, and then stand straight up, just like this, straight tall, back down. Okay, let's do 5 reps like that, and feel yourself driving straight up vertical. That motion that you're doing right there is the same motion that you do in the swing. Okay? And again, now that drill, you want them to feel the vertical drive. Okay? You can also do all kinds of cool stuff. You can work on their brace or their breathing when they're doing that. We'll get into that at the end. Or the one I want you to feel now is I want you to feel your legs driving into the ground on the way down and on the way up. You're always feeling your feet drive straight through the floor. So 5 reps again, and feel yourself continuously pushing into the ground. Because on the way down is how you sort of preload the muscles that you're going to use on the way up. It's like a good trick to get someone to use their legs more is feel the leg drive as you go down, not just as you go up. When Alex said, hey, we want to know some drills, if a kid's having a tough time feeling their legs or they're not getting a good leg drive, I go to that. And now you might have them go, hey, go grab the 80. You're only swinging the 53, but put some weight underneath them, feel that. And then they could literally do 5 deadlifts, 10 swings, 5 deadlifts, 10 swings. So now that we've done the deadlift, we're going to go back and you're going to do one, you're going to hike it, drive straight vertical, and then back to the target and then park. So I teach it like this. You're going to think target, stand, target, park. Okay? I'm here. Target, stand, target, park. Good. Target, stand. So you, not calling out anybody, but if you notice, the bell floats better, right? So that's a great line. So as you get better at swinging, every time I teach a class like this, people tend to go up 1 or 2 bells throughout the course of the workshop because they get better at using their legs. It's not that hard. You're just gonna do 5 actual reps now, but emphasize target, 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 target. So you're just gonna think target, drive, target, drive, target, drive, or target, stand, target, stand, target, stand, like this. I'm here, target, stand, target, stand, target, stand, target, stand, just like that, okay? It makes it way easier to teach. And remember, the bell and the butt go to the target. Pretty good, actually. So then from that drill, again, you can give a technical focus. So I want you to you're gonna do 5 reps again, but I want you to feel the legs pushing into the ground on the descent and on the drive. So feel your legs always pushing into the ground. Go ahead, on your own. And it's always target, stand, target, stand, target, stand. It's early hip hinging. So if do you guys do cleans and stuff here? Okay. If you're doing a really good clean, you have to wait until the bar's in the pocket. I did thousands of reps in my life. I never waited long enough. It's one of those things that like you just have to do it. Same thing with the bell. A lot of people, as the bell's coming down, they will start to, so there's the float, the descent, the hinge, and then the squat, and then the drive. Those are all the phases of a swing. What happens is you will initiate the hinge early. So if I went up to this bell and wanted to pick it up, what would I do with it? Would I grab it like this, or would I grab it like this? I'd do this, right? I want the bell close to my center of mass. So as the bell is coming down, you want the bell almost hitting you in the crotch before you start to hinge. And once the bell is here, it stays there through the whole phase until you get to the drive. So if you watch me, I'll do 3 early hinges and 3 late hinges. And I want you to first watch and second listen. So I'll go 3 good, 3 bad, 3 good, 3 bad, 3 good. Watch for the first ones. I'm here, early hinge. Watch how not crisp it is. Good, late hinge. Listen. Nothing. Listen to my shorts. Because, and this is sort of weird, I literally do my swings in tights now because I will catch my thumb on my shorts because I'm waiting so long. Okay, so let's try to let the bell, here's what it feels like. You're literally almost pushing the bell to the target. So we want to have a later hip hinge. Give it 5 reps again, focusing on that. Way better. Yeah, see, so Alex is already, that made a huge difference for you.
Now you know why I wear them thigh-high shorts.
So how many people felt like it was a more ballistic drive? Cool, and you guys are probably wanting to teach ballistic movements. So that's a common flaw is an early hip hinge. And the fix would just, in most cases, just wait. Just don't do that. It's a terrible cue, but it works. The target is important for loading the hips. And any one of these drills, you can have a technical focus for what you're doing. So if the kid's having a trouble with it, like, hey, I want you to feel your foot loaded, or feel your brace, or feel your late hip hinge, whatever. The breathing stuff. If you're doing 10 swings, can you hold your breath? Probably. Do you want to? No. Do you need to be able to control and regulate your breath in sports? Yes. Is this an amazing drill to teach you to do it? Yes. So if you want to teach breathing, I am usually doing 5 sets of 20 is the drill, because they can't hold their breath for 20 reps. 20 swings takes about 38 to 40 seconds. Okay, so when do you think you would try to breathe in? Down. Where in the down? Yes. So Alex said it. You're actually breathing either at the peak of the float or right as it descends. You better, now with the light bell it might not matter, for me, I have to have my breath engaged before I start to hinge, because as the bell comes down here, I have to now handle the load, and I want to be prepared for it. When would you breathe out? So you're holding it after that, but when specifically? Right at the top, okay? So when you're here, it's, you'd breathe out if you want. I'll just say this and not go into it. I think you can keep your mouth closed the whole time. That's a loaded question I can talk about some other time. But we'll go out through the mouth, because that's what everybody teaches. Right when you hit the top, boom. And then, right?
So to be clear, when he's saying at the top, he's talking about physically when he is locked out into extension.
Right at the top.
Not when the bell is at the top.
Yes. There should be there should be a noticeable difference between the time when you hit the top and breathe out and when the bell floats to its peak. This is what the breathing would look like. I'll try to do it with my mouth, but I never do it. So we're here. I can't hold on. So right when I'm just driving into the ground is when it comes out, and then you're breathing in as the bell hits the peak or starts to descend. That's it. So when you're working on this, it's easy to work on one or the other. So I would say, hey, we're gonna do this right now. 5 swings, breathe out through your mouth every time you get to the top of the pull, right? So we'll do 5 reps, and you're just gonna breathe out right at the top. Cool. Now, Sarah's swinging well. If you don't have a float phase, this is hard. You're going like this. If you're really good at swinging, there's a big gap there because you drive. Remember, the bell is probably just below your navel when you get tall, and then you have all this time in the world to sort of float up towards your head. So now, let's try, you're gonna breathe out here, and then right when the bell hits the top, you're gonna breathe in. So this is simple. When you're at the top, you're breathing out. When the bell's at the top, you're breathing in. So it's just like this. Right? But I'm tall and the bell's here, so try to do that. If there's not a lot of a gap, drive into the ground harder. So really drive, there you go. It's hard, isn't it? So the reason this is kind of a loaded issue, pun intended, if you don't have a good float, it's really challenging, right? So what was your name again? So Andrea just wasn't driving into the ground as quickly. So she was basically here, the mechanics were good, but she's doing this. Like, as opposed to pop, float, right? So getting the pop and float matters if you want to be able to breathe. How do you get a pop and float? Strong leg drive, using the target, brace. I mean, that's basically it. If you get all those things, the pop and float happens. Everybody, probably Alex is the biggest difference. He was swinging here in the beginning, at the start, his arms were a little tight, and he was not driving, he was early hip hinging. Then we did the arm thing, floated up to here, and then at the end, like he could be on the 80 right now, because the bell's swinging up here, and he's not applying any more effort. So the benefits of this, in terms of swinging well, you're under tension for less time. If you early hip hinge, you're under tension for a long time. Do you guys have any questions about this? Did I answer your breathing question? Did I answer the setup question? Does everyone feel like they know how to teach someone how to pressurize and brace? And do we have adequate peel backs for some of the major sticking points?